Okay, B.F.D followers, I have a treat for you on this glorious morning or afternoon now. It's sunny. It's finally kind of getting warmer out here. But I had a customer come back with a broken frame. And what happened is he took his cross-country single speed bike out and basically rode it really hard. He rode it on some downhill trails and crashed it a few times, but he is a hard rider. I know who he is, and he just abused the bike and he cracked the frame. The intended use, of course, was for cross country. It was a fairly steep head tube angle, long chassis, so it was actually a fairly fast riding bike too. But he cracked it, and so what I'm going to do is fix it for him. The condition of the frame overall is pretty good. It's just that the top tube cracked just behind the head tube. And so I'm going to cut it out and replace it with a new tube. So there it is. All right. And you can see it's a short travel 29er. And there's the crack right there. And I was hoping it was a little further back, anywhere back here or anywhere back here at all. And I could have just patched it by putting a gusset over it. But it cracked, half inch or so behind the head tube. And I'm going to have to cut it out. I'm just going to take a cutoff saw or grinder, cut maybe just past the crack there. And then because of the way the tube nests into the seat tube, I'm going to have to remove the stiffener here, and then the chain stays actually tie into the seat tube and then into the top tube. You can see that. And then so what I'm going to have to do is cut at an angle to preserve as much of the seat stay, and then come in afterwards with a grinder, Dremel or something to clean up the interface, and then I'll bring the new tube in and redo that. And then we're going to try something I've never done before, and that is do just a localized powder coat. Be interesting to see if it actually works. Okay, so I got the frame disassembled basically to get the main things out of the way, like the dropper, the headset, and the fork and everything, and the cabling that was involved here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to take my grinder and start working on the interface points here and see if I can get it off as clean as possible. All right, here we go. And all I'm using is your basic grinder with a pretty flat, thin consumable. All right. Make sure I don't knock you over. Okay, so I'm going to start here at this seat tube and see about removing this brace. I just want to show you. So you can see I left maybe a 1/16 of an inch of material on there, because once I have this removed, I can come in and be a little bit more careful and precise with a angle grinder with a sanding pad on it, and or use a Dremel to get and scarf it down to the original tube. The hard part is going to be right here, right? Because if you can see, it ties into the top tube, and I don't want to cut it right here because then I have a huge gap and I lose some of the support on my seat stay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in at an angle into the top tube here, because I don't care, I'm throwing it away, and try to preserve as much of the seat stays as I possibly can. And then come back later and clean it up. All right, here we go. What I did is I went ahead and cut this off because I wanted to be able to get in here fairly close to reduce the amount of material that I'm going to have to cut out manually with a smaller saw or a file or a small sander. But you can see it's pretty close, huh? I should be able to get in there. Once this tube's out of the way, I'll be able to get a sander in there and clean it up. Okay, so now I'm going to work on the head tube side. Just going to come down, straight down, and try not to nick the down tube. I don't want to replace more than I already am. I should be able to rotate this out now. Whew. There you go. Now I'm sure I can find something I could use this for. I'll just clean it up and probably do some test welding on it and stuff like that. Alright, that's the removal of the top tube. I believe this was the replacement tube. Yeah. Oh no, that's my tube. The replacement tube is over here. And what it'll do is it will come back in and I'll splice it in. I'll just miter this in after I clean this edge up. Clean off, take all the paint off of the head tube. And then it will come in and I'll try to pick up right in there. Of course, I'll clean that up too. I think this will work just fine. So this is what it looks like at the back end after the top tube's been removed. Kind of ugly looking, but it will be okay. And this is the forward end behind the head tube. Just finished doing the cleanup on the head tube for the most part. Do more cleanup, but you can see that I've removed most of the material. All right, there we go. It's a good angle. And because the head tube is actually pretty beefy, I wasn't too worried about taking a little more material off just to get it clean around where the original weld was. And I'm going to take off the paint just so when I do the welding I don't poison myself with powder coat paint burn off fumes. And you can see on the seat tube side, got most of it off. I still need to do a test fit in this area because there's still ridges right here. And then I want to see how much of a gap I'm going to have where the seat stays come in. And so I'm going to cut a little piece since I'm going to have a lot of extra left over and do test fits. I'll show you that in a minute. Well, I've been working on it for a little bit now, and you can see the interface is coming along. I just cut a blank that's the same size, and of course it's not mitered or anything, so that's why you'll see a gap there. But it's looking good on those edges there on the seat stays. All right, and so when I miter it, it will start to fit back there more cleanly and fill those gaps, which I'll have to fill with welding filler rod anyway, and secure that. And this end, the head tube side, shouldn't be a problem at all. It should be easy welding. I'll clean up down underneath here so that when I weld this paint, it's not focusing. Let's see if we can get the focus there. That paint right there won't burn off, and I'll probably clean it up all the way down to about here, past the first cable guide, just so that it's a really clean weld. I don't want to have fumes coming up in my face. I'll even clean out the inside too. The inside looks really good, pretty good. This bike is about 3.5 years old, 4 years old. Yeah, because it has the old decal rather than paint. It's a B.F.D. B.F.D. That was really nice. All right, so I'm just going to keep cleaning that up until I can fit that in there pretty clean, and then I'll miter the top tube and see how it fits in there. And I'll also clean up the tubes. So this is my Grizzly mill. It's just a bench mill, not the greatest thing in the world, and it's never worked quite right. But I pretty much use it for only small parts and for doing my miter cuts. There's a hole saw. It's about the same size as my head tube, as I said, and I'll do almost a vertical cut since the tube will sit in against the head tube almost at a 90-degree angle. So I'm just going to tweak the angle by tapping on it up a few degrees, and that should be pretty damn close. Again, I'm not going to worry about it since I'm going to take multiple cuts just to get it just right. Yeah, I'm just going to turn it on, knock the RPMs up to about 460, I think, is what I'm going to do that. maybe 550. Pull her out. And I'm just doing this because I have excess. And what I want to do is make sure that the cut is the full width of the cup of the hole saw, basically. And I already centered it. Now I'm just going to start my cut. Put a little WD-40 on just to help things out along. And I broke one cardinal rule. I left my sleeve undone, which is a no-no around machines. And actually, I shouldn't even be wearing sleeves right now. But oh, okay. So there's my cut. Now, something to be aware of is that I kicked it up, so this would be going down. That means this would be the underside of the tube. And that would mean on the other side, I have to make sure that I make a corresponding cut so that it's the right angle. So I need to make sure this end, when I cut it, is also cut so that it's the underside cut. So that means I'll have to flip it over. So I need to mark the side so I make sure that I remember what side it is. Now, it's not hard to do because when I put this up against the head tube, it should slant down and away from the head tube. Okay, so what I'm doing now is I'm transferring, taking the tube, so you can see this. All right, so I marked the tube, forward, bottom, aft, bottom, and I marked center line just so that I can always find it too. Now you can use blocks, clamping blocks that are square, that grab hold, and you leave those on your tubes the whole time while you're doing your mitering so that you can always find the exact 90 degrees, and that way you don't have to worry about putting it back into the mill correctly. So as you can see, if that's bottom, I take this and put it up against the head tube. There you go. That's a pretty good fit. And as you can see, when I zero it out on the head tube, look over at the other end, you can see it's almost perfect. I probably could have done 0 degrees or 90 degrees. If I push it all the way up to the top of the cup, where the cup will go in, it's almost perfect. I think, you know, what I'll do is I'll just clean it up by hand and check it out again, and then do minor touches to get the tube to slowly come up to fit perfectly in here. And I'm also going to do a slight crush of this end to oblong it, and it will slide into the existing location in the seat tube and be nestled by the seat stays. Here I'm just taking off the sharp edges because those are the thin part, the thinnest part of the steel, and when you weld it, it will suck back, it will burn away faster and possibly leave a hole in the tube or a divot, a notch that you don't want. And so I'm just taking it down to the thicker part. deburring more or less. And you can see it's, I don't know if you can you see that? I took the sharp edges off there, made it flatter. And this is the bottom, this is the top, so I'm just going to take a little off of the top edge to see if I can get the tube to rise up at the other end towards the seat stays. It doesn't take a whole lot, so now we're going to do a quick fit check. And if I move that tube up, I think that's exactly where I want it. So here I just have the tube mocked up basically so I can get an idea of how long it really is. And so I scrap the line, and what I'm going to do is use my angle grinder and cut the tube to approximate length, and then I'm just going to go through a series of iterations just like the front end, and I'm just going to keep mitering the end common to the seat tube until I have a good fit. So this will take a little while, and I just slow is better, multiple cuts rather than one big cut. Well, it took me a little while, but I finally got the top tube all fitted up and ready to go. I'm just going to remove it and clean it up, sand it down a little bit, and then wipe it down with some acetone. And then I'm going to start tacking it in place. And within hopefully next 30 minutes or so, I'll have the brand new top tube all welded. All I'm doing is making sure that everything is sitting in place. There's a slight preload back here because I had to fine tune it. I didn't want to cut it too short and then have to get another tube, and I filed it down as close as I thought I could get without overshooting, and so it has a slight preload between the two, but not much. And now I'm just going to check for gaps. And it actually looks pretty good. Alright, so I've cleaned up most of my material here. I'm just going to cut the tips off with some filler rod, make sure that they're fresh and clean. Hopefully I won't need all of this, but I just don't want to reach back in and pull out some more. Okay, got my freshly ground tungsten. I turn on the welder. Oh, I'm set up for stick, so I gotta change over to TIG. Hang on, doing some light tacking. I used to do a lot of pulse welding. That's where I just push down on the pedal and it pulses at a certain frequency that I set. But lately I've just been doing a steady current, and I'm getting used to it now, so I kind of prefer it. got the top sculpt. Now I'm just going to attack the undersides. Whoops. Gotta take the foot off. I've broken out the TIG finger because it's getting a little hot. I'll show you what it is here in a sec. TIG finger is a fiberglass material, just folded over and wrapped, and it insulates your fingers from the heat being generated and coming off the tubes, because it gets quite hot sometimes when you're working in these confined spaces, and I felt it. So I stopped and got my finger out so I can rest it on the tube and not burn myself anymore. Okay, I got the top head tube part all done except for two little sections now. One is directly underneath, which is always the hardest part, and I keep telling myself I should weld there first, but I get going and realize I didn't get it all the way under, and so I don't want to stop and come back, so I end up always coming back and doing it at the very end, which is the hardest part. You would think I have learned by now, eh? Anyway, I'm almost done here. One more pass on this little corner here, and the forward top tube will be completely welded. I have my machine set for a 5-second purge, so every time I stop welding, it continues. And this is what my weld looks like. Not too bad. I have to admit I'm a little out of practice. I haven't been welding that much lately. I've been doing little projects, building staircases and things like that. But okay, now I need to reach underneath and get the very underside, so I got to extend the tungsten, and that should be a lot of fun. Not. It's my least favorite part. So you can see how much I have stuck out right now. I'm going to extend that out quite a bit, which is okay. I'll turn up the gas a little bit too. To about 25 CFI, just temporarily until I can get all the way underneath of there. So there we go. Alright, well that was getting a little short, so I'm going to a new rod. So the welding is all done, and I'm just showing you what it looks like. This is the top tube interface into the head tube, and I'm quite pleased with the results. This looks pretty good. This is a side view. Not too shabby for not welding for a couple of months. Anyway, at the very end, I have a picture of the whole frame done. And I have the seat tube mass brace in there, and I brazed that on after I mitered the small piece that bridges between the seat tube and the top tube, and it came out pretty good, I think, and I think the customer will be happy. He should be, seeing that I'm not charging, I'm just doing it. So hey, good example of a repair. All right, see you guys next time.